Today we will talk about Argo CD. If you're not familiar with it, it is a deployment mechanism based on GitOps principles and designed for Kubernetes. What that means is that our job, like human job, is to define the desired state and push it to Git. And the job of Argo CD is to make sure that the actual state, which is our cluster or a namespace in a cluster or whatever our namespace is, converges to the desired state. In other words, it is a way to get rid of kubectl, helm, customize, and similar commands when deploying and managing applications and focus on defining the desired state only. Now, my name is Victor. This is DevOps Toolkit series channel, and we are going to do 20 minutes or less of Argo CD and try to figure out how to use it, what it's for, and so on and so forth through a hands-on explanation demo. So Argo CD in 20 minutes or less. Okay, so we are going to try to manage our production environment using Argo CD. To do that, we need a namespace. A production environment could spin multiple namespaces, but for today, we're going to focus on production namespace being the place where our production runs. So I'm going to create a namespace. By the way, I have a Kubernetes cluster and I have Argo CD installed. That's all I have. I have nothing else running inside it. We're going to do everything right now here in those 20 minutes. So create namespace production. Now, we need to define the state of our production. And as I said before, we are following GitOps principles using Argo CD. So the state will be in a Git repository. So we need to create it. So let's start with that. All right. Argo CD 15 min. That will be our Git repository. And I'm going to go there. And we're going to create some files. Actually, we're going to create two types of files. First one will be Argo CD application. Argo CD application is a custom resource definition or CRD for Argo that references a repository where the actual definition is. So we are going to use Helm today, but it could be customized, it could be kubectl, it could be any other Kubernetes type of definitions, but today we are going to use Helm, so I'm going to create a directory Helm. And then I'm going to create a Helm chart.yaml file. And that file will have API version set to v1. This is a typical Helm chart YAML file, nothing really special, just meta info. Description. Oh, I cannot type well today. Production environment. And the name is going to be production. And version is going to be 1.0.0. First release to production. Yeah! So that's our chart YAML. Chart YAML is uneventful, boring. So let's go to templates. Templates are where the real action is happening. So Helm templates directory. And inside of the directory, we are going to create a file. I'm going to copy and paste that file simply because it's a bit too long for me to type it right here, right now. So I pasted echo, which will create application. This does not define, Kubernetes deployment, service, ingress, none of those things. This is just Argo CD CRD application, and the only goal of it is to define a few essential things, and that is first, the most important one, the repository. We are going to tell Argo, hey, this application called DevOps Toolkit is stored in a repository, in this repository. And the definitions themselves are in the directory helm. So this is a separate repository. I already have that repository. That is a repository of my application with code and tests and build scripts and pipelines and what's not. And among other things, I'm telling Argo that in that repository, there is a directory helm where the definition of my application is. And since I might want to overwrite some values, I will use helm here to overwrite some of them. Specifically, I'm going to tell Argo CD that when it deploys this application, the tag of the image should be latest. We'll see how clever that is or not. And that ingress should respond to this address. And that's about it. Oh no, actually there are a few more things. Let me create this file first. Destination, production. So I want to run that in a namespace called production. And I want to run it in this cluster. This happens to be the same cluster where Argo CD is running right now. But it could be some other cluster. I could manage a fleet of clusters like this. And sync policy is the one that Argo CD should apply. In this case, I'm telling Argo CD that I want everything to be automated. No clicking buttons, none of those things. And that really means that it will monitor this Git repository, and whenever something changes in that repository, it should converge it to the actual cluster. I'm also specifying that I want it to heal automatically, self-heal. What that means is that if anybody changes the state of the cluster to differ from what is defined in Git, in this repository, it should undo those changes. Basically, it should always keep the cluster in sync, not only when we change something in Git, but also when the actual state changes through some means, whatever that is. And finally, prune set to true. What that means is that if I ever remove this file from the Git repository, then it should remove it from the cluster as well, that application. Okay, that's nice. So we have one application defined. Now let me define another application. Production with only one app is kind of boring. So let's define that we want to run two applications. So what I will do is that I will copy helm templates. I will copy this file and store it as yet another one, DevOps paradox.yaml. So this is my second application, and I'm going to modify it so that the URL of the app is DevOps paradox. So this is the second Git repository that I'm referencing. And I'm going to say that the ingress host should be also DevOps paradox, and then whatever is the address of my cluster. So I have now two applications. I can show you that helm templates. I have, oh, ls doesn't work. Helm templates. I have two files defined, one for each app, and they're all only providing information to Argo CD. They're not defining what the application really is. Okay, now I need one more thing. One more thing. I'm going to copy this this file, the first one we created, and store it as apps.yaml in my current directory in the root. And I'm going to modify it. Oh, I just realized one thing, that I made mistake. That's how you know this is happening. I didn't change the name of the second app, paradox. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Now, the last thing is the apps YAML. So this is what in Argo CD we call it app of apps, or application of applications. This is the one that will reference the production environment. The previous files were referencing repositories of individual applications, And we could keep it like that, and then we would be managing our applications individually, but I want to manage all of them at once. And to do that, I need to change, I need to create yet another definition that says, okay, look, this whole production environment is defined in this repository. And I will not need to customize helm values, so I will remove that, right? Cool. Now we have the files, and I will explain, I will draw it for you what it really means, but for now let's do git init, initialize the git. Let's gh repo create public. Let's create this repository. I'm gonna call it yes, that's okay, no description. Yes, I want to create it. So I just created a GitHub repository in this case, based on with the files, based on the files or the directory when those files are, and I'm going to now push those changes. Git add, git commit, initial commit, for example, and git push. What was set? Upstream, origin, master. So just push those changes to the newly created Git repository. Now all that's left, I haven't yet, Argo CD does not know about any of those things, so I'm going to tell Argo CD that there is app of apps, the last one we created, that references the production environment repository, which further references the apps. So I'm going to create file name apps. I just created a CRD. I just told Argo that there is this single application which defines or references the production environment. Let's see what Argo CD thinks about it. Open HTTP argo cd.ingress.host.chip.io. Here we are, and we can see that it's already progressing. So this is the one we created, the one that says production. That's the only app that we created, but since it references this repository, and in this repository it found definitions of two other apps that reference this repository and this repository. So think of it as extending and following the references, like it's hyperlinks, right? Now, let's see whether application is running. How about that? Shall we do that? Okay, let's see. I'm going to open HTTP, what was it? The DevOps Toolkit ingresshost.chip.io. Here we go. This is the application running in production. I mean, it's a demo cluster, but imagine it's production. And it's up and running, it's there. Hey, that's where my my books and courses are, and you can even buy them. Anyways, let's go back to the terminal and see what else can we do. Let's say that we want to modify one of the releases. Let's say that we want to upgrade one of the applications running in production. So let's take a look at Helm templates DevOps Toolkit YAML file. So right now it is running the latest tag. That's a bad idea for many reasons that I'm not going to even tell you. But let's change that and say, how about we upgrade this, whatever that is, to this release, 2.9.17. How about that? Can we do that? So I modify this file and I will push this to GitHub. So you will notice that I'm not interacting with Kubernetes cluster in any form or way. The only thing I'm doing is changing the desired states and pushing those changes to Git. So in this case, I'm adding this, I'm committing, let's say new release, and I'm gonna push it to GitHub. Now, to see what's going on, we're going to watch and then say kubectl -- namespace production. We want to get the deployment DevOps Toolkit, DevOps Toolkit, and we want to output JSON path. Oh, this is too much for a single line. We want to output JSON path, and it's going to be, what is it, spec template, spec again, containers, and then the first container we want to get the image, and I'm going to close this and this, and right now it is still running the previous release, the one that is tagged as latest. That will change very soon, but for now let's move into, while we're waiting for this, for Argo to do this or whatever needs to be done, I'm going to move and draw you what's happening. So what is happening really is that we had a cluster. Let's see whether this works. It's a Kubernetes cluster. I'm going to increase the size. And so this is our cluster. This is how we started at the very beginning. And the only thing we had was Argo CD running. That's the only thing we had in our cluster. And we also had some Git repositories. There was a Git repository of one application, app1, and there was a Git repository of yet another application, app2. These are the typical application repositories. There is nothing special about them. What we did today is created another repository that says production. Still Git repository. That Git repository defined two, in this case, Argo CD applications, 1 and 2, and they were basically only the references to Git repositories with definitions of those applications. And then me in this case, this is me, created another Argo CD application, app, that references this repository, and it created it in Argo CD. So what Argo CD, once we created this application that references this repository, Argo CD went there and said, give me the data. And it gave it the data, and among other things, references to those two application repositories. So it went to those repos as well and fetched all the information. And from there on, it started, and then actually it deployed those applications in a cluster. So this is app1 and deployed another application. And it started monitoring, continuously watching what's going on there, what's going on there, what's going on there. And the moment we changed something, in this case, in this repository, but we could have changed here or here as well, the moment it detected a change, it applied that change. And in this case, it was a new definition for this application, or the image tag that was referenced here as helm value. So it says, oh, okay, you want of app1 new version to run. Excellent. I'm gonna deploy it in the cluster, and I'm going to use rolling updates or whatever is the mechanism we chose. And once this is done, I deleted or removed, based on whichever policy you created, the old release. So it maintains those two in sync. And those two is that this is the desired state. And desired state is Git. And this is the actual state, which is, in this case, Kubernetes. And the job of Argo CD is to make sure that those two are always the same, are always in sync. The desired state and the actual state, and if there is a difference between those two, it converges the actual state into the desired state, makes the actual state the same as the desired state. Okay, that's about it. Actually, now let me see whether our application was indeed deployed. And if you see my terminal now, you can see that before it was running latest, now it is running 2.9.17. And if I go back to Argo CD UI, and if I go to production environment, I can see that there are two applications inside of production. DevOps Paradox, DevOps Toolkit. If I go to DevOps Toolkit, actually, I'm gonna click here. I can see all the components. None of those is defined in Argo. Only the reference to Git repository that defines those. And if I see the deployment, I can see that the image changed to somewhere. Oh, here we go, to 2.9.17. That was 15 minutes or 20 minutes, not sure, didn't really measure the time, of Argo CD. Thank you for watching. I hope that this sparked interest. And if it did, then I must tell you that I will be adding Argo CD to the DevOps catalog course in Udemy and book available in Limpub. So Argo CD is the next section of the material that I'm working on, and you can get it from that address over there and get it, buy it, expense it to your manager. I hope that you will. It's a good tool, and we go in much more depth in the course or the book, depending on which one you choose. Please continue coming to the channel. Hit like button if you liked it, and if you didn't, then do nothing. And please subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications when I published the next video. Thank you so much. Cheers.